At 6 a.m. on March 6, 1953, the Soviet Information Bureau announces news that shocks the entire Communist Empire.
The Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union reports that on March 5, Joseph Vissarionovich Stalin passed away.
Stalin's death was overgrown with different versions. Like, General Secretary might have been poisoned with food, water, or a deadly substance. Among the conspirators, there are mentions of the inner circle of the General Secretary, as only a limited group of people had access to the Supreme Commander-in-Chief. Few could boast of participating in cozy Stalinist feasts. The inner circle had sufficient motives to shorten the life of the Generalissimo. Many, even in high positions, were tired of living in constant fear, and they knew well what happened to those who fell victim to Stalin's purges. There are supporters of the theory that Stalin was killed by being given a poisoned book. While flipping through the pages of his beloved Gorky, Stalin repeatedly wetted his fingers, and in this way, toxins entered his body. The consequences of such poisoning are very similar to the signs of a stroke. After the war, 70-year-old Stalin's health deteriorated sharply. He rarely visited the Kremlin, spending time at resorts or government country houses. A year before his death in 1952, at the next party congress, the leader of the Soviet Union publicly named his successors for the first time. Not one, but four at once. Khrushchev, Bulganin, Beria, and Malenkov. Until his last days in power, Stalin played in combination and, like on a chessboard, arranged pieces. On the one hand, there is the insidious Beria with the characterless Malenkov. On the other hand, there is the hot-tempered, rustic Khrushchev and his colleague in the Moscow Central Committee of the party Bulganin. Away from the Kremlin, Stalin is secretly preparing to change the entire old party elite and bring new people to power. Stalin is trying to pull off the trick again with the so-called Leninist call, which previously, after the death of the leader of communism, allowed him to get rid of the old Leninists and rebuild power with loyal young party members. The looming blow will be felt first by Beria. Documents are being prepared against him in the State Security Committee, as reported by his subordinates in the NKVD in 1952. After the war, Beria increasingly distances himself from Stalin and consolidates control over all the country's intelligence services. Even the military was afraid of him. And such influence does not go unnoticed by the General Secretary, as at one point he bluntly tells his daughter, Allaloeva, "I don't trust Beria." In 1953, Stalin's weakness ceased to be a secret. He increasingly works outside the Kremlin office, with meetings and gatherings with his four deputies usually taking place at the suburban country house in Kuntsovo. Despite his illness, Stalin is very careful with doctors. He fears poisoning, which is why he doesn't even trust the Kremlin's doctors. At the end of February, the dictator fell ill, most likely it was a cold. Once, during a lunch with the Supreme Commander, Khrushchev reminded him of the healing properties of the bathhouse. The idea was picked up by Beria and Malenkov. Perhaps this is what triggered the fatal chain of events. Stalin had serious problems with pressure, having already suffered 2 strokes after the war.
In the presence of hypertension, high blood pressure, and headaches, it is not recommended to take a steam bath. And he, after taking a steam bath, as usual in wintertime, was given a car there. He wrapped himself in a towel and came here, to this entrance.
After the bath on the night of March 1, Beria, Malenkov, Bulganin and Khrushchev drove up to the country house in Kuntsevo to solve urgent matters. A table was set for everyone. The company left around 4 in the morning. Stalin went to sleep in one of the rooms. And the 4 successors returned to Moscow. The morning of March 1 didn't signal anything unusual. The guards paid no attention to the silence and the absence of Stalin, since according to the rules, they were not allowed to disturb the General Secretary on their own. They suspected that something was wrong only in the evening. Only at 10 p.m. did one of them open the door to the room where the dictator was staying. He found Stalin on the floor, paralyzed in his own filth. Doctors will later say that he suffered a severe stroke. The incident was reported to Moscow. 2 hours later, around midnight, Beria and Malenkov arrived in Kuntsevo. They ordered not to call the doctors. Comrade Stalin needs to rest, don't disturb him over trifles. Beria's words will be remembered later by the guards. Only in the evening of the next day were doctors finally let in to Stalin. To the silent question of the guards why the doctors arrived so late, none of the four answered. Everything that resuscitators could do on the second day after a severe stroke can be shortened to the last sentence in the epicrisis. The condition is very serious. While the chances of success with traditional medicine were fading, the Russian Orthodox Church took it upon itself to help the dictator. More precisely, what remained of the Church after Stalin's repressions. Patriarch Alexei instructs that prayers for health be said in all the churches.
Our Church cannot forget the benevolent attitude of our leadership, and personally, of Joseph Stalin, and its duty, in its usual manner, that is, with fervent prayer, is to respond to the trial that has befallen our people, the illness of our dear leader and wise builder of the people's well-being.
The next day, March 5, Stalin periodically regains consciousness, but no longer speaks. In the evening, he was injected every 20 minutes, but this could no longer stop the irreversible agony. His heart stopped around 10 o'clock in the evening. The powerful dictator who held a huge empire in an iron fist and threatened the world with World War III died without regaining consciousness like a plant. Nikita Khrushchev was appointed responsible for the funeral of Joseph Stalin. He assigned the roles of the participants in the mourning ceremony. For 3 days, Moscow witnessed a historic farewell to the Supreme Commander-in-Chief. His body was brought to the mausoleum and laid near Lenin. The role of the gravedigger suited Khrushchev well. A few days after the burial of the father of the peoples, he, relying on the military, arrested his main rival, Lavrentiy Beria, and in true Stalinist fashion, immediately had him executed. And then Nikita Khrushchev began to deal with the cult of his predecessor, whom he had previously faithfully served. Stalin was found guilty of unjustified cruelty. Death sentences without trial and investigation. Gulag concentration camps. The atrocities of the Extraordinary Commission, NKVD, and KGB. Holodomors. Deportation. Repressions based on fabricated accusations. The true scale of the bloody harvests orchestrated by the Stalinist regime is almost impossible to imagine.